3, 2, 1, 0, and liftoff.
Welcome to Mission Control, Peralta Design's podcast on all things branding and digital marketing. Since 2008, Peralta Design has launched hundreds of brands with award-winning identities and websites. Join our hosts Ramon and Jorge as they use decades of combined experience to tackle topics with past clients, industry partners, and the rest of the PD crew. At Peralta Design, we launch brands. But for now, let's launch right into this episode of Mission Control.
Hey everybody, welcome to Mission Control, Peralta Design's official podcast on everything branding, marketing, and entrepreneurship, where we respect the grind and we reclaim the American dream. I am your host, Ramon Peralta from Peralta Design, and we launch brands. And today I'm very excited to have someone on the show whose skill sets, complement ours. She's been in the game for a very long time. She's a veteran at this. She is in the world of public relations, so I'm very excited to have her on the show. Please join me in welcoming Jenny Smith. Welcome.
Thanks so much, Ramon. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. It's something I've been looking forward to for a while. I'm glad we finally got you on the calendar. And tell the audience a little bit about yourself. Tell us your backstory.
Sure. So my name is Jenny Smith. I am the owner and principal of Acuity Public Relations. We're a marketing and public relations consultancy, specializing in PR, of course, and marketing communications. I love helping my clients position their services, connect with their customers, and tell their stories. That's really my passion, is telling the client's story, what brought them to what they're doing and why. My backstory is pretty long road, and it didn't start right in public relations. I got my undergraduate degree in journalism with a minor in economics in Ohio. Worked in Ohio for several years, worked for a newswire service, and I also did copywriting, advertising copywriting for a large department store there. And I worked part-time for a woman who owned her own marketing communications consultancy. And this was in my early 20s. And I actually learned quite a bit from her. And I think that probably set the seeds for what I ended up doing, more than 30 years later. So those were my early experiences in Cleveland. Got married and moved to Connecticut for the first time in the mid 1980s, in 1984. And I worked as communications director for the United Way of Southeastern Connecticut and Gales Ferry. And that's where I really learned to love the storytelling process, interviewing clients of the member agencies of United Way, talking about what they did, how those clients benefited. That became a passion. From there, I went to Puerto Rico, where I was communications director at United Way of Puerto Rico. I had become proficient in Spanish in high school and university, but really had to dive in and get to a level of fluency once I arrived in Puerto Rico. And I think I have the reverse immigrant challenge. So that was a really initially stressful, but ultimately life-changing opportunity for me working in Puerto Rico. And that was until the early 90s, when I went to Los Angeles and started working in the private sector for a small boutique public relations agency by the name of Durazo Communications. And there I took the Spanish language proficiency and combined that with public relations with the Durazo team. And we did a lot of public health work. We were one of the agencies as part of a large team that helped the California Department of Health Services do its tobacco education campaign, which really reduced smoking rates by more than 20% across the state. I traveled to little towns in California, set up Spanish language interviews with health educators, handled events, handled health promotions, and that was a wonderful experience. In the early 90s, moved back to Connecticut and got my MBA From there, I took a little bit different tack and went and worked for a medical device manufacturer up in Sturbridge, Massachusetts, and managed their marketing for several years, and really put some of the international lessons that I had learned during my MBA to use with that company. Was there for a little over 4 years, and decided I wanted to get back into the public relations and marketing sector. Went to work for a marketing communications firm in Rocky Hill, the PETA Group, and for the next 10 years I served as their director of public relations. And in 2012, I went out on my own and formed my own consultancy, and here I am.
Yeah, that's a heck of a story, because I think I say this on every episode that success is not a straight line, and you certainly were all over the globe. It seems like all over the country. Yeah, all over the country, and so Cleveland was that's where your folks were from. That's home base.
I grew up in Northern Ohio. I grew up in Sandusky, which is halfway between Cleveland and Toledo on Lake Erie.
That's awesome. And then I, of course, going, the United Way path, I've been involved in the United Way here. We still have United Way in New York City as a client. That was the track to Puerto Rico. Did that opportunity just come up? And then even though you didn't know how to speak Spanish at the time, you were like, that sounds like a cool thing? Because that's pretty brave to just take that on.
Well, my then husband got assigned to Puerto Rico. And I was like, all right, well, I can go and do nothing, or I can continue with the career that I have. Mm-hmm. As I mentioned, I was already somewhat proficient in Spanish. And so to get fluent, we enrolled in a lingua course, a language course in Washington, D.C. for 4 months before we arrived in Puerto Rico. And then when I got to Puerto Rico, I continued my Spanish language education at the same time I was working. As you may know, Puerto Rico is an interesting place in that you really have to be bilingual, English and Spanish, to work in a business environment. And so I would practice my Spanish on my colleagues, and they would speak English to me, and then we would correct each other. And it worked really well. I was able to bring some of my stateside United Way experience, and I learned about the culture of Puerto Rico and learned to do things a little bit differently there.
Yeah. And that all, at the end of the day, prepared you for the opportunity in LA. So how did that come about?
Again, this was a spousal move, and I was like, all right, next. Started interviewing, and when I got to Los Angeles, I was thinking about getting my MBA when I got to LA. And then I started interviewing and met the gentleman who owned Durazo Communications, Ray Durazo. And after one interview, hired me to support their Connecticut Department of Health Services campaign. Wow. And so that's how I started in Los Angeles. I wanted to work in a job that allowed me to continue using the Spanish language skills that I had acquired in Puerto Rico. Obviously, there are some different expressions and accents in Southern California because it's mostly a Mexican-American population, but I made it work.
Right. And just, it seems like there's a pattern where these weren't just jobs, but it sounds to me like making a difference wherever you were going was a big factor in your work. Do you find some reward in that? Being
Absolutely.
Boots on the ground, kind of making a difference kind of positions.
Absolutely. I think grassroots communication became a big part of what I did and continue to love to do for clients, is that grassroots. How can we get to those who really need our products and services?
Yeah. Now, you studied journalism initially. Did you ever have a dream of being like, I wanted to be a painter, right? And walk around New York City with, gallery shows. And I said, well, maybe I'll do that in retirement. When you went to journalism school, did you think you'd be a broadcaster or a reporter, or did you have any of that kind of vision for yourself at that time?
I initially did, and I really enjoyed what I did while I was in school. I was an editor on 2 student newspapers, really enjoyed that. But I think pretty soon after I graduated, I decided I wanted to take a little bit different tack, and started pursuing copywriting jobs, public relations jobs. Ohio Newswire, where I worked initially, was a newswire service, a private newswire service that helped companies get their financial statements out onto the wire into newsrooms. And back then the technology was a little more difficult, but so that was the job at Ohio Newswire. And then simultaneously I was doing copywriting work for a department store advertising department, and working as a freelancer for a woman who owned her own business. So it was kind of the quintessential piece it together when you get out of college and do a bunch of different things.
But that's a great, that woman clearly made an impact on you as far as like having her own shop and having her own clients. And, you know, like, were there some things that you learned not to do as well as things to do by working with her?
Well, she had formerly been the marketing manager of Cleveland's Major League Hockey team.
Wow.
So it was interesting because I think what I learned from her is two things, is the discipline that it takes to get up every day and self-direct and have your own business. So I observed that. And then I also observed the challenge of balancing your life with your clients and trying to make sure that you are doing your best to serve your clients, but you also have capacity to manage your life as well.
Yeah.
Those are the two things that I learned from her pretty early.
Yeah.
Because I saw her in overload a lot.
And what was your role with her? Like an assistant, or did she give you a client?
I did anything she asked me to do. She had some shopping center strip malls as clients. And so I would go out and distribute materials. I would help her write different things. It was pretty much kind of a Girl Friday, learn as you go kind of a job.
Right. Now, I've met creative directors that come from a design background, and then I've worked with creative directors that come from a writing background. So to me, it's a gift. It's you're tapping into a creative place when you craft these stories. At what age did you feel like, you know, you had this gift for writing? Did you keep a diary? Were you good at writing poems? Like, when did you start writing?
6th grade, actually. And I think my first positive experience was writing an essay based on a family trip that my 6th grade literature and writing instructor held up as a class example, made me go up and read, gave an A+. And I think that initial encouragement from a teacher who I respected was really kind of the path that set me forward, and knowing that I could use words and I could write to help others and convince others and tell their stories.
Yeah, that's an amazing testimony. I can identify with that as well. The impact teachers make cannot be understated at all.
Absolutely. That's definitely a story to tell your spouse.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I see it. I mean, in the relationships, she follows a lot of these kids, and they remember her. And so that's awesome. I have a similar story with regards to drawing, but it was in the 2nd grade, but it was the same kind of thing. The reaction and the rise that I got, the positive affirmation, that feeling that you have something special to give and contribute, you know, I think in many ways we still chase that professionally.
We do. And I think I was watching one blogger who is in marketing, and she said, what is flow? Let's define for us professionally what flow is. When you get into the groove, when you get into the flow, when time dissolves, when you're just in your moment doing what you love. And it doesn't have to be something easy. It could be challenging, but you've got your whole brain in it, and the rest of the world just kind of disappears around you. And that's when you know you're in the place that you need to be.
Absolutely. That's a great way to describe it. Now, how did you find yourself doing, like, specifically public relations, you know, as a discipline? And how do you describe the job? Because there's publicists, there's public relations, there's spin doctors. Like, how do you really describe what you do?
I think, well, the Public Relations Society of America, which I'm a member of, defines PR as the process of developing mutually beneficial relationships between an organization and its audiences. That's the simplest, most boiled down description of public relations that we can come up with. Now, as a part of that, there are many aspects of that. That's, the traditional marketing that we grew up with earlier was, you just push your messaging out there and whatever sticks, you just kind of throw it against the wall. Public relations has always been a two-way process. It's about listening first to your audience. As a public relations professional, is about me listening to my client. What makes them different? What do the people who buy or use their products or services think of them? And what does that interaction look like already? And that's the basis on which we build a public relations plan and a program, is really that first listening process and getting that feedback.
Yeah, excellent. Now, for our audience, small business owners or entrepreneurs, why is good PR important for a business or small business?
Well, your reputation and your image are critical to selling your products and services. If you don't have that, then it's going to be a lot more difficult for you. So, what is it that makes you special? What are people saying about you, and how can you leverage that information in a positive way to position yourself? I think that's really, really important. Is that the reputation and your image, and again, that's a function of public relations, is to support and advise on a management level how people go about positioning their businesses to reach their customers.
Yeah, and now we can both remember a time before the internet, right? So
yeah,
share that. So how has the internet changed PR and marketing? Because now you have people can Google you, and there may be some unsavory things that people find, or people may Google you and actually read all about you and make decisions before they even meet you. So what has changed since when you started in this industry to like the tools that are available out there now?
I think that social media and digital communications have made public relations more important than ever. Because what we have now is the ability for consumers and audiences to give unfiltered reviews of your company, your product, your service. There is no filter, and it's important to anticipate what's going on in the market, what people are saying about you, and to have someone who can help you appropriately craft your positioning and your messaging, and monitor what's going on in the marketplace, what people are saying, to be able to respond appropriately. I think here in the pandemic, you're seeing so many examples of companies who are doing that listening, really active listening, and they're responding appropriately. The companies that are donating products out there, companies that are listening to their community's need, and they're responding in kind. And that may not sell products or services for them in the short run, but it's certainly going to cement their positive position and reputation in the long run.
Mm-hmm. Let's talk a little bit about, you just brought something up that made me think of, brands like Patagonia and Nike, Adidas. Like they're utilizing their public relations strategy has been like get behind a social cause. And Patagonia has said, every time that they've gotten behind a cause, their profits have gone up. Are you seeing that more and more with some of the clients that you serve?
Yeah, I think that if you are showing that you are not just out there to make a buck, that you have a larger purpose for your company, for your employees, that increasingly, especially younger generations, see that and respect you and are more likely to buy your products and services. I mean, I'm a consumer of Patagonia myself for those very reasons. And I'm not a millennial, but I respect what they do. I respect what they stand for. And it's actually kind of unmarketing for them. It's like, don't buy our stuff, recycle it. And you're like, yeah, but it's really cool this year, so I want to buy that extra vest, right?
Yeah, that's true. Unmarketing, because they do have that where they want you to kind of recycle your used clothing, but that makes you want to buy more of their clothing. Support their brand.
It's contrarian, but it works. It really works. And the other things, I think the brands that are willing to go out on a limb about what they believe, they're going to have to be, and this is from a public relations perspective, they're going to have to be willing to take a little bit of blowback on that position. And Nike's another perfect example of that, with its support of Colin Kaepernick and other social justice causes. That's you have to believe in what you're for, and you have to know your audience is with you to be able to have the strength to go forward with those strategies.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that Nike is a great example, because in one of my presentations, their profits after that ad aired, and that was way before George Floyd. They were putting those ads out, and I think their profits went up $6 billion, even though there was some blowback of people, burning their sneakers they'd already paid for. As a sign of protest, Nike understood their audience, and they understood who was buying their product, and that's a key piece there. So, in other words, the traditional PR has evolved now, where I think getting behind social causes and championing social causes is something that consumers expect the brands that they support to actually be doing.
Very much so. Very, very much so. One of the sectors that I have served is the senior living and home care market. And when you're talking about right now in the middle of the pandemic, when so many people are fearful, the challenge for senior living and home care to position their services in a way that provides comfort, that promotes safety, those are all challenges, and these organizations' biggest challenge is to tell the story from the people who are within the organization. I have done work with senior living communities, the one here in Connecticut, and their best weapon for marketing are the people who live there, and the people who have amazing stories to tell, not only about their amazing lives, but how they came to decide to live there. What are the benefits of living there? How they've increased their social circle while living there. And again, going back to my love of storytelling, those are the kinds of things that I really love getting involved. The ability to provide that first-person testimonial by interviewing the people who use services and products of my client and get the message out that way.
Mm-hmm. It's awesome. Now, I want to switch gears real quick to your international marketing days. So, because that's something we just discussed some local, and we'll come back to that when we talk about our strategic partnership. Tell us a little bit about the internship you did with the U.S. Department of Commerce.
So that happened as I was getting my my MBA at Rensselaer, Hartford. I decided I needed some just kind of dig-in experience. And so I was doing some part-time freelance work, but I decided I'm going to go and do the work for at the U.S. Department of Commerce. And again, I went in knowing nothing and worked with some amazing women. The director of the Export Assistance Center in Middletown, Carl Jacobson, was an awesome guy. Taught me so much. I put together a lot of research for them, which we went out to the media with on the state of exports within the state, and learned some things that I actually didn't get as part of my MBA. It was an add-on. Mm-hmm. While I have not lived in another country and promoted a product from outside of the U.S., some of the lessons I learned, such as you can do all of the research on your company's product and how it will resonate within that country, but if you don't understand the export-import situation, if you don't understand tariffs, if you don't understand the national and international laws that can facilitate or prevent your product from even getting into the market, it's no good. When I worked at Optum, which is the medical device manufacturer up in Sturbridge, Massachusetts, I actually saw that firsthand, getting trade show exhibits in and out of Germany, which was a nightmare. It's the things and contingencies that you have to build into getting your product from point A to point B. That's a big part of the marketing equation on the international side.
Yeah.
And that's beyond just understanding your audience and designing a product that fits within their culture.
And what about just the general narrative? Like the storytelling has to differ, I imagine, in Europe as it would here in the States. Maybe there's colloquialisms or cultural differences between men and women. I don't know. Did you discover anything differently in marketing these medical devices in Europe as opposed to here in the States?
Really, what we focused on were what are the regulatory agencies' rules in the place that devices are going into. There are some international standards for quality of devices, but you have to make sure that those regulatory standards are equivalent, or that they're or similar enough that you can negotiate that. But yeah, I think trade rules and regulatory requirements are a big part of international marketing. You really need to take those all into account.
So you've worked, at these big corporations. You worked in these nonprofits with United Way. Now, for the last 8 years, you've been on your own. What do you find the most challenging?
I think finding clients is becoming more challenging. Word of mouth is always a great thing. Getting referrals is great. But finding clients that you want to work with, that are a good match with your skills and they see you providing value to them, I think that is always a challenge.
Yeah, it's a good segue into. I want to talk a little bit about, and because I think a lot of folks out there will get inspired. First of all, that you went off on your own, and I'm sure that when you did that, I don't know if I'd have done it unless I got laid off, honestly, because it was scary. How did you work through that fear, that initial fear of like, I'm going to go do this on my own? Did you already have a client lined up, or did you just, what was that? What was that? Do you remember those early days and what that was like?
Well, I was also laid off from the marketing agency I work with, and they were restructuring. So at that point, I was interviewing with large companies, and I was moving towards a finalist interview with a large insurance company in Hartford. And I came to a point where I looked back at my career. I looked back at all the things that I had done, and I decided I did not want to be unifocused. I wanted to have the flexibility to do different things, to take on different types of clients, to really stretch and expand, rather than focus on just one industry and one small piece of the marketing equation within that industry. And so that was January of 2012. Again, I was on the cusp of saying, all right, I can go into this finalist interview, or I can make a decision now. And I looked back at the woman that I worked for in Cleveland. I looked back at the point where I was getting my MBA and doing freelance work, but not really as a company, and saying, you know what, I can do this. Yeah. And so I made the decision. I called the interviewer and I said, you know what, I think this is not for me. And that was probably the hardest thing that I have done in a while, is turn down a really, really good job.
Wow. And were you just like listening to your gut? Was it a voice? Did you pray? Like, where did this come to you where you just felt moved to do that?
it was that inner voice.
Mm-hmm.
It was that nagging inner voice that said, okay, if you don't do this now, you will never know.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's awesome. And I can remember those days. And when I first started out, and even to this day, strategic partners are a big part of how we operate, where and I think this is for those folks out there that are starting out or that are small or that really trying to figure out ways to work with other service providers whose offerings, or verticals are different or complement theirs. And so we don't do the public relations in-house, and you don't do the branding or the web development and some of the things we do. And so
I'm the word guy.
Yeah. Yeah. And I make things look pretty, I'm visual. So I think together we work well. And we've had a fun chance to work on a project that you actually brought us in on as a sub. So sometimes you can pitch something together. Sometimes you hire each other. I know we've pitched a number of projects together, some state municipal opportunities, and we'll keep trying. But it's important that we both feel comfortable like leveraging each other's brands. I feel like we have a good brand. You feel like you have a good brand, and it's important that you're confident vouching for us and vice versa. And I think that's one of like the foundations of a good partnership, is that it's not a one way. It's not like one is just bolstering the other and without it, or one's bringing the other one down. I think a good partnership, is mutually beneficial, but also is stronger together. And would you mind sharing, since it's your gig that we're helping you with, a little bit about like the process and what we've been working together on for that senior center?
Sure. Well, we're doing work for a small, private, and well-respected home care agency in the greater Hartford area. And we have been working with them to develop their positioning and relaunch their brand. It's not a total change of scenery, but we wanted to find a way to position the agency to morph their brand and their position to people who need more than just home care, for people who need what in the industry they call life care support services, life care management services. So a person may not immediately need somebody to come into the home, but they need an advisor who can help them navigate what is a really complex environment right now with home care, with, what do you do with the doctor? Which child is going to be in charge of the elder in whatever environment they go into? There's just so many questions that families have right now about how to protect their senior. And increasingly, home care agencies are incorporating talent that helps people work through that process. And so part of our work is to help this agency do that positioning as part of their new brand.
Yeah, it's been a blast working with you. You're also project managing it, which makes it easier for us. You're dealing with the client for the most part and relaying their feedback and getting feedback from us. But I'm grateful you pulled this in. It's been a great project for us. It involved a lot of our offerings, it's in our wheelhouse. We had a little bit of naming, we had some branding, we had some web development in there, and working with you on content. And the fact that you're a resource for us, super grateful. So you're able to create content, copyright, review content. That's super helpful. What's I didn't even ask you this, but where did the name Acuity PR come from?
Everybody has their funny how we created. I didn't want to be Jenny Smith Public Relations. I actually had gone down that road before when I was getting my MBA, and I'm like, it's too generic. It's just too John Doe. So I said, okay, well, I want to be at the top of the alphabet. Mm-hmm. And then a little joke on myself is I'm totally myopic. I'm blind as a bat. So I'm gonna call myself Acuity, but Acuity not in the literal sense, but in the sense of, we're taking that 360 view of your company and we're offering you a little bit of visibility, acuity into what the marketplace is doing. So combination of things. And then of course you always do the trademark search, the word search. Does anybody else have this? Can I do a website? All of those things.
Yeah, no, it's great. I love it. I love the branding on it. And is there any other work that you do for clients that we haven't discussed? Like, what's it like? Maybe share a success story or share some ideal clients so our listeners can kind of get a good understanding of who you serve.
Well, I'm very proud to have done work throughout actually the past 5 years for the Village for Families and Children, which provides a whole array of services that keep families and children in a more stable position, especially now during the pandemic. They're doing so much. And I've done a number of projects with the Village. One was for a parental support program out of 2 of their schools. We did a text campaign to educate parents on what was going on with their children and what the programs and services that the school offered. I've worked for the last 5 years with the Village and the United Way of Central and Northeastern Connecticut on the Volunteer Income Tax Assistance Program campaign, which offers free tax support and tax filing services to people with moderate to low incomes. And most recently worked with the agency to promote their EMDR therapy program to help children and youth who are suffering from trauma. And so that was extremely satisfying. So that's on the nonprofit side. I've also been working with my life partners business, who you have recently interviewed, Daniel Penn Associates, which is an operational consultancy firm. And we've been super successful in working with DPA's team, his experts out in the field, to create thought pieces, to create blogs, to create how-to articles that we have been pitching to Industry Week, to Plant Engineering, to Control Engineering, to Pharmaceutical Manufacturing Magazine, to all of these different trade publications. And we've had a lot of success in pitching and placing articles authored by DPA experts in those publications. So that's also really satisfying. That actually takes me back to my manufacturing days and some of the manufacturing clients that I worked with at the PETA Group. So that thread, that line is carrying forward.
Yeah, I mean, it's true what they say. Everything you've ever gone through has prepared you for where you are today, and I can definitely see that thread. And so in these cases, you're creating content, you're writing blogs, you're writing copy for advertising, for websites, right? All of that, and kind of managing that process.
But always looking at what is that goal? Is it meeting the objective? Is it something that can drive people to the client's website, to get them click on a button, to get them to pick up the phone, to get them to send an email? I think that's really always the goal for all of our clients.
Yeah, absolutely.
And you do that very well.
Thank you. And appreciate that. And I think that's why there are a number of reasons why I love working with you, what you just shared, but also it's so evident that you really care about using your powers for good. A lot of the clients and the work that you're doing is not just it's not just for the buck, but you're actually making a difference with the clients that you're working with, which is excellent.
Yeah, I'd love to give a little plug to the national network that I'm part of. I'm the Connecticut representative for a national network of senior public relations consultants called the PR Consultants Group. And as part of that group, we're a mutual support network. So we provide each other professional advice, but we're also increasingly partnering with each other on projects. And right now, I'm working with 2 of my network partners. One's in Denver, one's out in California with their clients. So I can bring them into projects. They can bring me into projects. Sometimes it's geographically dependent, and sometimes it's skill and industry dependent. It really depends. But it's been a wonderful network to be a part of, and I think we're all benefiting, especially now during the pandemic, having group Zooms of 50 people. It's been great.
Yeah, it reminds me of Michael Jackson's song, "You Are Not Alone." You're your own boss. You got your own business, but when you align yourself in these networks, you get pulled into these different opportunities. And we talked about the challenges of finding jobs and clients. When you're in these organizations, yes, you got to work at it. You got to be present. You got to be involved. But you also, in effect, you've just cloned your sales force. You have people out there that are keeping you top of mind and pull you into these opportunities. So that's excellent. So I want to give this, as we wrap up here, give you a chance to tell our listeners what the best way is for them to contact you. Is there an intake form they can go to, call you, email you, kind of just share your social handles, whatever you like.
Sure. So my website is acuitypr.com. My email address is Jenny, Jenny, @acuitypr.com. My Twitter handle is @acuitypr.com, acuitypr. And then you can find me on LinkedIn by searching Jenny Smith, Acuity PR.
All right. Excellent. Jenny, this has been great. I think, I'm just so grateful to have you in our network and count you as a friend. I do miss bike riding with you and Tony. I have to put that out there. So I can't wait till we can get back to doing that. But
2021.
2021. We're just gonna do like a century every week just to make up for.
That sounds great.
But I just want to say thank you for making time to be on our show and just let you know how grateful I am to have you in our network, and that my team can reach out to you and vice versa. And I look forward to working with you on many more projects. And I hope our listeners really reach out to you and learn more about what Acuity PR does. You're really great at what you do. One of the best in my opinion. And I look forward to working with you for a long time to come.
Thank you so much, Ramon. Back at you.
Yeah, thanks. All right, everyone. Thank you for listening to this episode of Mission Control. Until next time, this is Ramon Peralta from Peralta Design and Relaunch Brands.
Thank you for taking this journey with us. To learn more about Peralta Design and our work, go to www.peraltadesign.com and subscribe to keep up with the crew.